Hey Michael, how are you? Just waiting for Hannah. I just forgot to send her a link and I just did, so hopefully she'll be on soon. Hi Dushan. Hey Phil. Good morning from Melbourne. Let's make sure that it looks like she's got it. Hey Hannah, sorry. Can you all hear me and see me okay? How's the picture? How's the audio? Hey Thomas. Hello, catch my whiff. Here she is. Hello, Henna.
Hello.
I'm sorry, I completely forgot to send you the link.
That's okay.
Good morning from Melbourne. Is it afternoon there? I can barely hear you.
Yeah, afternoon here. I'm hearing an echo for some reason.
Have you got headphones in? Hi, Cassie. Hi, Anna.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine, yeah. Is there still an echo?
Yeah. We're good.
Perfect. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
We have,
Some familiar faces.
yay. Thanks for joining me. I'm still
Yeah.
waking up. I need to dip my face in a bowl full of ice, I think.
Or have big, maybe an iced coffee. That could go far.
Uh-huh. I've had a giant coffee already.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So we guys, for those of you watching, we didn't really have any specific topics that this live was going to be about, but I think Hannah posted
Mm-hmm.
on her Instagram stories, see if anyone had anything that we wanted to talk about or had questions. But before we get to that, catch my whiff saying spray Kuros. I don't have any Kuros actually, but I'm about to spray some
We
Egoist. That can be my scent of the day. There we go. Now I feel like I've woken up.
Now you're scented.
Yeah.
So
What?
on Tuesday,
Yeah.
this will tie into some of the things that people are wanting us to talk about. But on Tuesday, I went to get my nails done, and I'm gonna spare you guys the boring details. But I was trying to get this really niche service that is hard to find out in Toronto that I wanted it here, and I found the salon that does it. And sure enough, I go in there and they're doing it all wrong, completely just abort, stop, do not go any further. And then I feel like most people would have just left then, right? They're messing it up. I'm showing them my phone. I'm like, look on Instagram, this is how you're supposed to do it. And they're like, that's what we're doing. And I'm like, no, you're not doing it like that. That's not what's happening. Anyway, so I was there and I said, I'm here anyways. Let me get a pedicure. The woman that owns the place is now doing my pedicure and I think she felt bad about what happened. And as she's doing it, she's like, oh, beautiful Chloe bag. Like, I like Chloe perfume. Do you know Chloe perfume? Little does she know I've worn Chloe in all its flankers at some point. So of course my face like lights up. I'm like, yeah, I know it. It smells so good. It's so rosy. It's so nice. And then she goes on to like tell me about all her favorite perfumes, the perfumes she loves. But her thing, this is her thing. Her thing is getting things for cheap, right?
Yeah.
So she says, I go to duty free, and when I travel, I just like fill my suitcase at duty free and I just bring back all this perfume for cheap. And, I give it away as presents when I get back. Love me because of it. Everybody loves me because of the perfume that I give them. And I guess like that, like it ties into like what people want us to talk about. Like people want us to talk about pricing, right? And it was so fun. So, at the end of the service, I'm paying and I'm like, okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Like I'll definitely be back to chat about perfume. But it was just like I got in the car and I was like, wait a second. Did she like see me coming? She smelled me coming and she's like, this person's into perfume. I mean, I don't think so. Her thing was really like bringing stuff back from duty free. Like, that's
It, I don't know. I don't know what it's like for everyone else who's travelled overseas recently, but the last couple of times that I've been in duty free, perfume prices don't seem that much better. But I don't know if it's a country by country thing. Like in Australian duty free, perfumes seem to be the same price as what they are in department stores.
wow.
Yeah.
No,
So
ours
maybe.
are a lot cheaper.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
maybe it's country by country.
hmm And
Yeah.
don't you guys have a cosmetic warehouse, like a literal warehouse where you can get like cheaper perfume?
We have in Australia we have a pharmacy chain, and it's
hmm
literally called Chemist Warehouse,
Oh,
and they have the biggest range of brands probably uh, of any retailer in Australia. So
hmm
you can buy Creed, like you can buy stuff like Creed. Like I've even bought Aldo perfumes from them, and they generally are cheaper than anywhere else. You just like you just don't know how old their stock is. But I've never everything I've bought from them has been absolutely fine.
hmm Yeah, people are saying in the EU, duty free is not that much cheaper
Yeah, well,
either.
because I mean, even like I can only talk about Australia and the uh, last time I went to, well, in March when I went to Italy, and again, it didn't seem that much cheaper in the airports there.
hmm I mean, so I've seen prices like for something like like the Chanel O, right? That line is like I think it's like over $200 for the 100 ml in Canada, and then
Ah,
when you're at the duty free, it's like 215 or something like that. Like someone was posting prices out of Montreal, and it was considerably cheaper. So, I mean, you can't get into duty free unless you're taking a flight. So, the irony is that you have to have spent that money anyways. But I mean, for this woman who was just like stocking up as presents, like she was like, "Oh, I went to Germany. I didn't like I didn't buy anybody anything from Germany, but I just stocked up on 212 because I saw it for $30 and I got 10 of them." Like I don't know. So I guess like what they do have at duty free that they don't have is like DRM Intense. Like they have
yeah.
that and like all the flankers, and they don't have that in stores here. So
Ah, okay. So yeah,
I
well,
guess
that's the one thing that I noticed that they tend to have some stuff that you can't, like that I
yeah,
definitely don't see in department stores there.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so Catch My Whiff is saying it's not. much of a bargain. Yeah, I guess it really depends. Like it being duty free, and I don't know really how it works, but I'm assuming it depends on each
The duty.
government's way of taxing stuff like that. Like yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you're literally saving on the duty. So if we're in Canada, obviously we're going to pay more on duty. That
hi Mark, how are you? Two of the best, thank you. Yeah, so Andy confirms that about
hmm
the EU. Next time I do go to Europe, usually there's a stopover either in Singapore. Maybe next time I go, it'll be Hong Kong. So I'll make a note to check what it's like in those places when I do a stopover. Um, Short answer is yes.
Why
How do
not?
you pronounce that? Mouse peck. I'm just going to call you Hans.
And then
Yes,
how
of
come
course.
women don't ask if they can wear men's then? Is that
Maybe
interesting? Like no
maybe
one
women
has,
maybe women are just more secure about that kind of stuff.
yeah, maybe. Maybe they're like, no one's gonna know anyways. No one's gonna ask. You can do whatever you want. Just like do it. You're doing it at home. No one's even gonna know. Why are you so worried
Exactly.
about it?
Exactly. But you know what? Like I just sprayed this on, and
Mhm.
it's marketed. It's always been marketed to men, like Chanel,
Yeah.
this Chanel Egoist. But I think if I this is a type of perfume, and mainly because I guess there's a very prominent rose note in it. If someone smelled this blind, I don't think anyone could say whether it was masculine or feminine.
hmm
Yeah, so
Yeah.
um, now, uh, yeah, I definitely agree with this because I see it a lot too, especially with several YouTube YouTube channels.
Where they say cologne for a men's scent.
Well, the guys will say cologne because for some reason there's something about saying that they're wearing perfume
Yeah.
that
It's
doesn't make
pretty.
them feel comfortable. the craziest thing, the craziest thing is people.
Just
Now, okay,
people. Full
so
stop. That's
yeah,
it.
we're all crazy. So we were gonna focus a bit on pricing. But
hmm
I know that we had a conversation about it earlier in the week. Um, do you think like let's just take the last 12 to 18 months, maybe 2 years. Do you think it's pretty much the same thing, or has it actually gotten worse? Because I took note very recently that Tom Ford is about to release a new perfume, and it interested me because it looks to be based on myrrh. I think it's going to be called Myrrh Mystère. I might just
Yeah.
type it in here. Maybe people have seen posts about it. Now, I was told, and I think pretty reliably, that a 50 ml bottle is going to retail at $400.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and okay, so Tom Ford, I'm used to the 100 ml private blends being around that price, but
hmm
I don't know. I immediately like this is a perfume I would have been really interested in trying, but as
Yeah.
soon as I saw the price, like almost almost from principle, I've decided just to ignore it because like there's no way like especially as someone who talks about perfume on YouTube on my channel, like
hmm
even if I liked it, there's no way I could recommend anyone buy it unless
hmm
they could get it cheaper. Like I
Yeah.
would still review it, but these prices are just crazy, and like
Yeah.
we kind of know why they price like that. It's got nothing to do with quality of ingredients and that kind of thing. And we've talked about this. We'll touch on that as well.
Yeah.
Um, but there was another one, and now Creed have just are about to release a new Aventus flanker, and it looks like that's going to be higher priced than any of the other Creeds as well. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, so I think across all brands, from what I've seen, there's like a 15 to 20% price increase, right? Coming in August. And it seems like they raise their prices at, at least once a year, but maybe even twice a year, right? That's what it seems like. And every time it's 15 to 20%. So they're asking the consumer to pay more. Um, and it looks like people are paying that much. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like, I think, yeah, you and I are saying, well, we don't want to go and fall in love with it right away because that's a lot of money to spend. But then I talked about this when I was at my, like, at the department store here that would carry the Tom Ford Private Fund collection, and they were having 15% off all fragrances. People were stocking up. Like, it was insane. And I don't know, like, maybe they just keep doing it because there are people that will pay for it, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But at the same, so it's hard to talk from a fragrance enthusiast point of view because we're here, the people that are watching this stream are only like a really small.
Yes.
I'm presuming a small percentage of the people that buy fragrances.
Yeah.
Because generally the average consumer customer will look at Tom Ford and they will buy the perfume because it's a Tom Ford perfume,
Hmm.
nothing to do with sort of less to do with how good it smells. The fact that
Yeah.
it's aspirational in like
Sure.
they
Like,
can
there's
tell
something
people,
about that brand that they like, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it just seems like a really weird time because I mean I guess across the world post COVID economically people like I don't think people in general are doing as well financially as they were doing pre-COVID, but this
Yeah.
this stuff is just going up like luxury. I'm assuming all luxury goods are just increasing in price.
Yeah. I mean, I see that comment by Andy that it's a one-off purchase for most people. And
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely see that a lot, right? Like, with my friends that maybe don't have as much perfume as I do, they're just getting that one. So they're not shopping around, they're not worried about the price increases, they're not looking at last year compared to this year. They don't even want a partial. They want to go to the counter and buy that thing that they fall in love with. And um, I don't know, like, good for them. Like, if that makes you happy, then that's great. I think for us collectors and people that consume a little bit more, it's harder to spend that much money when we know we're gonna maybe not love it as much next year, or maybe next month we'll go on to the next thing.
I mean, it's right. It's like, there is. So it's kind of there's a little bit of just having that Tom Ford bottle sitting on the dresser or in your perfume cabinet, and like you and I would probably buy partials because we don't necessarily care that we own a bottle of
Hmm.
Tom Ford if we like a fragrance, if we really like a fragrance, but it's probably something we don't want to spend so much money on. We're happy with a partial or even a decant of it, and
Hmm.
that's absolutely fine. Let's see. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely heading that way, Mark.
Like to touch on what you were saying, Pap, like people aren't doing as well financially, right? So
Yeah,
the price increases for perfume, if they're 20% and inflation is 2%, it's hard to kind of justify the price increase and not feel like the brands are just kind of um, squeezing like every little dollar out of their regular consumer. And then we know with like a larger brand, half those bottles are going to show up at Costco or discounters. So you just like wait until they show up there and then get them
yeah.
and, you know, see if that
Well,
happens.
and Andy makes a really good point here. It is more acceptable to see indie brands charging what might seem on face value to be a lot of money for a perfume, but
Hmm.
like I know through my experience with Miskeo, like and talking to other indie perfumers, one of the main reasons would be that they cannot buy materials in bulk the way bigger brands can for starters, and they actually and that so that means those materials cost more because
Yeah.
the more you buy, the cheaper the material becomes,
Hmm.
and they have access to less variety of packaging for bulk reasons as well. So they only buy in small batches,
Yeah.
and mean that costs more per unit. So you can accept it from an indie because per unit, per bottle of perfume, uh, they're paying more for packaging materials as well. So, but look, I've found that I haven't really come across an indie brand that I have found overly expensive, like that. I've looked at their prices and thought, oh, why does it cost that much? I mean, there is a disparity. Some do cost more, but we like that could be. I mean, we'll probably get into this topic about ingredients and why, like uh, how do we know? How does the customer know how
Yeah.
much? What quality ingredients the perfumer or the brand is using, and
Totally.
whether we should just accept, it's very hard for us to find out really what ingredients were used, how much they paid for them, and but interestingly, there's this kind of push for a bit more transparency especially from the indie perfume side about what's going into their bottles.
Yeah. I mean, indie is, you know, I think whenever something is maybe not mainstream, we think of it as indie. But Miskeo is like more artisanal, right? Like Miskeo is more like isn't Marie doing all the mixing, all the bottling, all the
Yeah,
packaging, the
yeah,
social media, the right, the outreach, everything, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
with like support probably from a graphic designer or right with a writer or something like that. But mostly it's her.
It's all her. It's all her because
Yeah.
she's a designer by profession as well. So she's done all of that as
Yeah.
well. I mean, you then get the art, like other perfumers. Like sometimes I look at art. When I think artisanal, like I start to think about perfumers who are actually um, making their own materials as well.
Oh,
Some
sure.
of them
Like a
do it.
tincture or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Hmm.
Um, but you're
Oh,
right. Like a lot of these perfumers, like I know, obviously I know a lot about Miskeo and brands like St. Clair, Sense Diane St. Clair.
yeah.
She's in the same kind of position. She's doing it
Totally.
all herself, and there is heaps of others that do it like
Yeah.
that as well. And you look at their pricing and you think, okay, so they're covering their costs and they're giving themselves a margin to at least make some money off of what they sell.
To live.
But it is very difficult to compete. Those guys like find it. I would imagine find it very difficult to compete with those sort of next tier niche brands that
Hmm.
have some kind of financial backing behind them, where they have a particular budget and go all out, and to my mind they focus more on packaging, probably cut corners on the juice that goes into those bottles, and then they've got a budget also to do a lot of social media marketing, send heaps of bottles out,
Yeah,
and they're all over, and then they're the ones you hear about, like, because you can't
yeah,
avoid hearing about them.
for sure. I mean, when I was looking into prices, like BDK is a brand that comes to
Yeah.
mind, right? Because they are just all over the place, and I know that they've done a lot of like outreach for sure. But then when you smell the perfumes, at least the ones that I've smelled, I haven't really like seen, I haven't smelled anything that is really unique. You can kind of see that they've put their own twist on certain concepts, and they're trying to deliver what they think people want, but with um, kind of like a mass appealing kind of base, right? And I think people think of them as indie because we can't get them at a department store. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess they are indie because they're a little bit harder to find, but it's not one person that's doing all the mixing. I mean, the person that owns it is not a perfumer, right? So, um, it is really hard. I think it's hard to tell unless you just smell a lot of perfume. And I think like pricing is the thing that people want us to talk about the most, right? Lots of people said talk about pricing because I think people want to know where they should spend their money, or I don't know, where their money is well spent. Let's
Well, look,
say that.
it's always going to come down to, like, and I think we agreed on this. It's always going to come down to personal. Like, if you really love a perfume, the next thing you're thinking is, what am I willing to pay for it?
Yeah.
Because I've got nearly 70 bottles of perfume, and pretty much love all of them. But I don't think I have spent more than 300, 350 for a bottle of anyone.
Mhm.
So, like, for me to spend that much, like, I basically just decided this is my limit. Like, I literally would not have bought it if it was $100 more, whatever, because I already have enough bottles. Like, I don't need to spend. I don't need that new bottle that much that I'm gonna spend that much money. But it's individual. Like, like, it's
Mhm.
got. If I had more money, maybe I would spend more on perfume. So, like, it's all, I guess, relative to your personal circumstances.
And what I've seen from my friends is that, if they really like something, and sometimes we'll smell stuff together, right? And I'll say, oh, yeah, that's good, but it's not like the same write down as this other thing that we smelled, Like, is that like that's weird or interesting? And they'll be like, yeah, but it's still good, and they still like it enough. And so who am I to be like, well, it's not worth it because it's, like, and I can say that to my friends. I feel it harder to say on social media, I think, because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Like my friends know it's not like I'm not saying smell bad, like saying like don't. Yeah, I just we can all smell the similarities, but they like it. So okay, great. Like, but then when we look up the prices, it is a little bit outrageous sometimes what the prices are and what the price hike, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. And look, there's a psychological aspect to it as well, like or an imprinting. Like I still for some reason, I look at Chanel Les Exclusives line, for instance, okay, and um, for few of those, for the few that I really like, I'm still I don't look at their prices and say, oh well, that's just like too much. Like I go, okay, well, it's Chanel, and these smell really really good, and I'll wait and save up, and I'll get myself a bottle
mhm,
eventually. But and yet when another brand um, prices themselves at that level, like even if the perfumes were similar, like at a similar level, like, and again, that's obviously a personal taste thing. Anyway, I
yeah,
would I would have second thoughts about paying paying that money for another brand. Like I think
yeah,
that there's this almost unconscious thing, especially with established brands that have proven to like produce quality things, not just perfumes. But that like that, there's a bit of brainwashing there.
no, but they do, like Chanel does do their own, like they have their own bases and they do control their sources a lot more, right? Like we know that Chanel never goes on sale. Chanel's never going to be at a discounter. You might get like the friends and family discount if you know somebody, but it is really, really tightly controlled from the ingredients to the actual bottle, right? So at least you know that if you are choosing to pay that much money, that a year down the road, it's not going to be half price at Fragrance Net or something like that. So, like you were saying, if the new Tom Ford is $400 for 50 ml, Chanel is still cheaper. Like the Lay's Exclusive are still cheaper because their 75 ml is
Yeah,
$290, at least Canadian. So, um, and I don't think the Tom Fords smell generic to my nose. The ones that I've smelled, they all smell pretty unique, and um, there's not like that overdose of the aroma chemicals or the woodiness or anything like that. So,
I
uh,
think the main complaint I hear about Tom Ford these days, especially with the private blend, is that I've because and I'm not saying it because I've tried them, but like people, I always read people saying that they're generally not quite as strong as like
mm,
their launch year when they released in 2007 when they released Oud Wood and Tobacco Vanille and Noir de Noir and all of those like classic Tom Ford private blends. Now people smell those the current versions and they complain that they're quite different.
watered
Um,
down almost.
yeah, and they haven't always been owned by Estee Lauder, right? Like that
No,
was
yeah,
yeah.
right.
I
Yeah,
mean
they weren't
that
always.
and that's another and that's another thing. Like when brands basically get bought out by bigger conglomerates,
Hmm.
what happens to them there? The prices go up as well.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, they said that about Frederick Mel, right? That they smell different than how they did when they were first not not owned by anyone.
yeah, I mean, I haven't smelled enough old Frederick Malle to know.
Yeah.
I I do know that like I haven't smelled much recently from Frederick Malle that has sort of really caught my attention. Mark, I would love to come onto your channel for something, and
I mean,
happy to.
so. So one of the things that leads into is, someone asked about the state of the perfume industry. And whenever, from what I can see, whenever people talk about the price hikes and how expensive it is to get some of these perfumes, then people talk about the clones and the dupes and how those high prices create a market for the dupes and the clones. So, I mean, I can only speak from my own experience, and that is that I find that they never smell the same. Maybe in the top they do, but never like throughout the whole wear of the perfume. And then you can spend a lot of money looking for a dupe and never be satisfied when you could have just had the real thing. So I don't know if that market is really a market then, if people are ultimately dissatisfied with what they get.
Yeah,
But
that's a really good point.
but I mean, that being said, the market exists, right? There's lots of people that are like, no, well, do that. I'm just gonna buy the clone.
Well, it's interesting you said that because I on Facebook this morning when I opened up to one of my Facebook fragrance groups, someone had posted about the new Aventus flanker. They're bringing out an Aventus Absolute, I think it's going to be called. And someone immediately had posted, I'm looking forward to
Clone.
the Latafa clone coming out for it,
Yeah.
or something like that. Um, uh, so this is an interesting point. Yeah, like for people like Peter from Fragrance View, and I know, and I also know, what how much like an actual bottle of perfume, like for instance, a 30 ml bottle. It's easy to figure out how much the juice cost, all the materials, the percentages, and the alcohol, whatever. But I would put it to you that, like, well, I know that most of the end cost of the finished product is in the packaging. Like, the packaging
Mm.
usually is going to always cost more than the actual juice. So I'm not sure if Peter talks about how much his actual packaging costs, but yeah. And just on that, because I did mention to and this, if anyone has got other brands in mind, like I did mention to Hannah during the week when we were talking, a brand like Strange Love New York, which I really don't know much about other than the perfumer is Christophe Laudamiel. And am I right in saying that Helena Christensen, the supermodel, is the like did she start that brand, or is she just like sort of associated with it?
I have no idea.
Yeah, well,
Let me
because
Google it.
the question I asked was like, like they're essentially an indie brand, but their prices are like pretty expensive. But
Hmm.
on top of that, most people who have them or tried them really like them. Then there is the some people put forward that the materials in those perfumes are really high quality materials, and I have no reason to doubt that. But if I was the average customer, how am I just taking your word for that? Like, how would I know? Like, I haven't been on their website to see whether how they verify that or anything like that. But I just thought it was interesting, and I'm sure that they're not the only brand that are priced like that. But I did think, so they've become very popular. Well, in Fragcom over the
Yeah.
last couple of years, because you see a lot of people talking about them. But it just makes me wonder what actually is going into the price of that bottle.
Hmm. So it says that Helena Christensen is the creative director.
Okay,
So it sounds like that is her line. And then Christophe Laudamiel is the so so
so
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's a good question, right? I mean, how do you as a consumer know? really, I mean, this comes down to just sampling, right? Isn't that just at the end of the day, isn't that like what is the solution to all of this? Is just sample, 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 right? And see if it moves you or if you even remember what you smelled, and then you can justify the price and don't blind buy stuff because then you'll never know. You
Yeah.
won't have enough of a range to be able to compare it to anything.
And I keep going back to whenever, like, and it's not easy for everyone to do, but like, if you if you make friends in in perfume social media, wherever possible, like blind sniff stuff, because that just reminded me, several times I've been sent samples of stuff, blind sniffed, and stuff that I've liked. Like I remember Cherie from the Top Note. Um, Probably I think it was last year. She sent me some samples that were blind. One of the ones that I smelled was like this kind of nice, um, like really nice Chypre style perfume, and I think I literally said the words. It reminds me a little bit of um, Matsuko and Roche's Femme, and it ended up being Diaghilev by Roger Dove, right? And
Hmm.
like if I'd smelled, like when I was smelling that, I think, oh yeah, this is pretty nice. Like I'm guessing it's in this ballpark. But then I realized, and then when I was found out what it actually was, I
Yeah,
thought, okay, well, it's nice enough, but there's no way I'm going to ever pay those prices for that.
right.
Like it was totally fine perfume, but I didn't smell anything there that made me think, wow, I've never smelled anything this good before, and I'm willing to get into debt to buy this bottle. So
I mean, I think the one criticism against that perfume in particular is A, that it's an extrait. So it is quite strong, right? But B, it's in a 100 ml format and that's it, which is, I think you can get travel sizes now. So I think there is like a 10 ml or an 11 ml and if for an extrait, and it is so strong. I mean, why is it only in a 100 ml bottle? You're saying that you want people to commit to it for life, basically.
yeah,
You're,
but that's a business model. I mean, that's a
yes,
business decision.
and trying to attract a certain kind of customer, right? That wants to spend that much money on perfume. Like they don't want people that are looking for a deal.
Exactly, and,
Yeah.
and it makes a good point too, because this is something I've thought about a lot and it probably applies more to people who own less perfumes. Like a lot of people are concerned about performance and longevity in their perfumes, and it comes back, I guess, to needing to spray less and therefore making your bottle last longer. Like someone like me, I it's easy for me to say I don't care that much about how long a perfume lasts, because I have so many perfumes to rotate. I mean, this bottle of Egoist I've had since 2017, and I've only you know
Yeah.
finished gone through half of it. And that's a 50 mil. So like there was never any, and that's why I also only buy the smallest size available.
Right.
But someone who's only got two or three perfumes, they would have finished this in a year probably, and maybe only worn one perfume a day as well. So I get why people worry about performance and longevity for in that situation. Whereas it doesn't matter to me so much, because I'm going to spray something else on later in the day, when I stop smelling of Egoist.
But you have also shared your perfume, um, I guess your like the way that you wear it, like you work out in the afternoon and then you pick something different. Like you've mentioned that many, many, many times. So yeah, you just need something to get you to lunchtime and then you're okay to like spray something different or right like in the middle of the day, you've talked about that so many times. um I think it would be great if more people just like did it that way. I don't know, I don't get what like the obsession with strength and longevity. I mean, it must have to do with pricing, because if you're spending that much, you're thinking I want it to last forever. Like it should get me through my 8-hour workday or 10-hour workday or whatever, um, without me having to worry about it. But I just don't know if like you're I don't know if you are, I feel like you're sacrificing something when that's what you're getting.
I,
Getting longevity, but you're sacrificing something.
yeah, I think there's the that like uh what's the word I'm looking for? That feeling of getting value for money for starters.
Mm-hmm.
But then there is also the people. I'll just say thanks, Mark, for joining us. I'm presuming you're going. Lovely to see you there. And then there's the people, and then there are the people who care more about just making sure other people can smell them, because I've seen so many people, like even comments on some of the reviews of perfume I've done. I'm not even sure that they've watched and listened to me try to describe what it smells like. And the first thing they ask is, does this project? How long does this last for?
Yeah.
That kind of thing, and it's their priority.
Yeah. Or something that they at least take into account before they go and buy something, right? But
Yeah,
sometimes the perfume is lasting, but you've become anosmic to it.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
like
And
how do
other
you
people
take
still
that?
smell it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, unless you deliberately do that test where you wear it and you know that you can't smell it anymore, and then
Mm-hmm.
you deliberately go to people and ask them, "Can you still smell this on me?" And I've only found that out like by accident with some perfumes. Like I remember, and I have told the story before, like wearing a Terre d'Hermes parfum once, and spraying it on early in the morning, and like I'd stop smelling it hours, like early afternoon, and then later that evening, um, going to someone's place, and when they opened the door to greet me, like they could still smell it on me, and I'd stopped smelling it.
Yeah,
But that could be all the ISOE super as well.
I think so. Probably.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Anna said the bottles are customized. Yeah, if you're going to go customized packaging, obviously that's going to be costing more. Um, yeah,
And so we see like these brands come out with like extrait versions, right? Where presumably there's more perfume oil, so like there's now 23%, 25%, where it's like an eau de parfum intense, because I guess that's what people are asking for, or they assume that there's a customer for that, and so they can charge more and offer this more intense version, and hopefully that customer is satisfied also. I
yeah,
just think that, with all things, there's like a pendulum, right? And it's going to swing the other way eventually when people are realizing that maybe they don't want to smell that strong, or they're becoming anosmic to something or allergic to something, or they're tired of like not being able to wash it out of their clothes. Like something is going to happen where people are now over it. It's like it has to.
well, I mean, there is a saturate, like the market is really, really saturated, and you just wonder
Mm-hmm.
where the tipping point is. Although, have you heard of many brands that are kind of sort of don't exist anymore that did exist a couple of years ago? Because I have not heard of many brands sort of, I guess, shutting down operations because they're just not selling enough perfume. Like I'm expecting that to happen a little bit more in the next few years.
Hmm. I feel like I have, but I can't remember the names of any of them. If I do, wasn't there like the Pine Word? Remember those? Like the
Oh,
Pine Word, right? Didn't they close down and then someone bought out their brand and that is still like making the perfumes under the same name, but it's not, wasn't that one of them?
yeah,
Uh,
maybe.
yeah.
Maybe someone can tell us. I'm not sure. I thought they were still around. So maybe someone has.
It's around, but someone bought out the brand
Okay.
because that person was shutting it down. I don't know if it was because they couldn't afford to or it's time to move on or what. But I think that was one of the ones that comes to mind. But yeah, I guess the problem is that in the last 2 or 3 years there's been so many new brands, right? So maybe let's have this conversation in 2 years and see who
Yeah,
is
yeah.
still around. Um, I thought that $400 comment was interesting though. Like instead of spending $400, yeah, buy 2 or 3 indie niche instead of just one bottle from an old house. So let's say $400 from like a Guerlain L'Art et Metier, right? Instead of that, spend that on an indie house instead.
And that also has a little bit to do with your like and some consumers have particular principles they like to abide by. Like some have
Yeah,
got brand loyalty, or they just like I know you and I on Instagram and other social media, like we've become familiar with some other indie brands, and like and we get to know them, and you get a sense of
hmm,
loyalty to them. So I totally get that. I mean, I still try to just like smell stuff, and if I really like it, I'll buy it. Although admittedly and I'm not going to get into it here, but there is still some brands I just avoid, and I
yeah,
because there's so many other perfumes to smell. There's just brands that it's just easier to avoid because I just
sure.
don't get into that rabbit hole. Um, so yeah, I definitely there's I see more and more of this, like about transparency, about even stuff like what's going into their, like I talked about a brand on my channel a little while ago called JUS.
Yeah.
Even things like what they do, they list their actual perfume formula on the website for each perfume, and like
Hmm.
I guess I think at least it gives people the option to look at that rather than a made up note pyramid that kind of tells them like not so much. Like it might describe what they're doing, but then again, average person who buys a perfume, they're going to look at that formula, and it's not going to actually mean that much to them
Yep.
as well. So
That's true. I'm not going to mix up my own perfume. Have that in me. But the other thing is they're not really big enough to get ripped off either,
no,
right?
no,
That's not like the same thing as like Chanel posting their Le Lion post, like recipe. Like everybody is gonna take that. And JUS, I mean, I don't think they're big enough to be to that level, so they can afford to kind of have that transparency.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Um, Heavy conglomerate buys out smaller brands at incentives of everyone. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you've got shareholders and uh, executives to satisfy.
yeah. Hi, Stephen. Good to see you.
That's a great question.
Okay. That's a good question. So the each perfume. So I think I mean, Marie was already working on versions before I got involved, but I'm just trying to think, go back in time. We're talking, well, at least 18 months for all. So like uh, over the course of a year to 18 months, I smelled different versions of them. So she would adjust formulas or whatever based on feedback and that kind of thing. So it took us that long before the first four we were happy with for a launch. Yeah,
Did that
so
have to do with the time it takes to send, because she had to send over, like,
I mean
no, not really.
that took you know each time that only took like a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, like from sending stuff
Hmm.
from Germany to Australia. But then once I had them, like we would do a Zoom call or whatever, and I could give her the feedback or give her
Yeah.
notes. So that it was really me just waiting to receive them, so I could smell them and give my notes and feedback on it.
But 18 months, that's a long time, I think,
Yeah, yeah. Because
and
with every like with every single
version.
draft version, because like for instance, each one of the at least three of the perfumes that were part of the initial launch had, in some cases, up to seven different versions of each
Hmm.
one. So I would smell each one of them, and give my opinion on which ones I liked the best and why I liked it, all of that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, there were some that like none of them worked, but things like Pistol, for instance, that was good pretty much from the first version. But but then like every time she would make an adjustment to a perfume, she would need to let it macerate and mature, so I wouldn't be getting something that still hadn't finished developing, in other words.
And I don't know if like all the mainstream releases are taking 18 months to create.
I it's well, I don't know. Like, do we know like how long would Chanel have worked on Le Lion? Any big thing? Although
I mean,
I
it's different when if you're like Christopher Sheldrake, like it probably
yeah,
doesn't take you 18 months to come up with like an amazing
that
formula, right?
well that's true. That's true. Like and some people and some perfumers, like especially brands who can afford to hire established perfumers, those perfumers might already have unfinished
Yeah,
formula that they can use to start off on a brief that they might get. Like they might. I'm sure. Like it would make sense to me that they
I think.
would have some kind of catalog of things that fit the description of a brief, and then they can sort of work from that.
Hmm.
Um, sorry,
But I
Mika.
think this was a brand that maybe got bought out, commodity.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't I didn't hear about them. I knew that they were in Sephora and then they weren't in Sephora and then they were in Sephora again. Um, yeah.
Yeah, probably, Anna. Like we probably just haven't heard of so many brands.
Yeah.
Uh, just checking through the comments.
Yeah, I like B's comment that an upside of the perfumery boom is that it's attracting new talent to the industry. I think that's definitely true, and I like that it's like becoming more and more acceptable to wear perfume and enjoy perfume, you know? So people are getting back into it because we went through think a period of time, and maybe we're still overlapping with that, where we have a lot of scent-free zones and people are really scared of anything that's sensitive. So I think maybe that is turning around where people aren't so worried about that.
So I'm curious to know, maybe they can elaborate. Do you mean, do you think it's new talent, like as in new, like more people getting into like wanting to become a perfumer or even creative director, that kind of thing, or just all the people that have been emboldened enough to want to try to do their own thing, like therefore more indie brands do, like self-taught perfumers and that kind of thing. Is that what you mean, probably?
Do do you follow any perfumers on Instagram and stuff?
Do I follow any
Yeah,
perfumers?
like
um
any like big like mainstream
I
perfumers.
only follow Christopher Sheldrake.
Okay. I follow Natalie Lorson, and
Yeah,
she posted about her son graduating from perfumery school. So I guess like he's going to be a perfumer as well. And I
yeah,
thought that that was really interesting. I think it says something when you encourage and celebrate your children going into the same industry that you're in. Like clearly you think that it is a worthwhile endeavor and that they can achieve some sort of success and have a good life doing that. Like that's a good thing, I thought.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
thought that was really and there's a few, right? Like Jacques Polge was Olivier Polge's son, so or was
do we
it?
count do
Yeah.
we count Olivia Creed and Owen Creed? No, okay. um and Antoine Lee, sorry,
What?
why why are we talking about Antoine Lee? Because is he you
Oh,
might have
like maybe new attracting new talent to the industry? I mean, I don't know if
oh
you though, but
I figured he's yeah, maybe you might have to explain, Anna. Sorry, like I thought he's been
yeah.
around for a while, hasn't he?
I mean, he's independent, which is really
Yeah,
interesting, right?
yeah.
And he chose to be independent.
Does he? I know he does. I know he's done perfume lines recently for brands, but
Yeah.
has he got his own line like Olivia Crisp has? Acro.
Pro, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
just wondering.
know. Not
Lee.
that I've heard of, actually. That's a good point. He's maybe one
Yeah,
of the few that hasn't started his own
yeah.
line.
Yeah, because a few of those independent perfumers have recently launched their own line. So, is it? Am I right in saying? I mean, I could look it up, but I don't want to get on my phone. But that like matière première is
Yeah.
Aurélien Guichard. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Um, so many in my area of the US just stopped wearing it. Oh.
Stop buying perfume.
Oh. Okay.
Hmm.
So we had
Yeah.
these periods where perfume wasn't popular.
Yeah. And now I think it is. Like I think people want it.
I'm definitely smelling it more on the street. Like I'm definitely just
Hmm.
smelling perfume randomly on people in the street. Maybe I'm looking. I'm kind of like unconsciously looking for it, but I agree, and and I work in an office environment, and there's definitely I think a few years ago there was a lot more people who were, like it was getting a bit. I was actually getting a bit worried that I wouldn't be allowed to wear perfume to work anymore because people were complaining about allergies and so on. But that doesn't seem to be happening so much anymore. But that's
Hmm.
just my very small circle.
Yeah,
Okay,
I didn't know about that.
Oh, I never
circle.
heard of it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. And then I guess it didn't take off and it's no longer, which is interesting because you think you would have you think it would take off, because it seems like all the other lines have, like Acro has. I think Acro gets a lot of love from what I can see.
And do you wonder because we see well, I mean, I'm speaking for both of us, but I might be wrong about you, but most of what we see is what we see on social media, and
Hmm.
we're like deliberately following people associated with perfume. So when
Yeah.
we see brands come up and they seem popular to us, um, I just wonder how much that translates into how successfully they're they're doing. But
Hmm.
but I guess like I know there's only like there's not that many niche perfume distributors in Australia,
Yeah.
um, and my guess is that they probably find out a lot about these brands that they bring in through social media anyway, because like there's one big distributor here in Australia, um, and I noticed that when they add a new brand to their inventory, that it's had a little bit of hype on social media. So I'm just wondering if that's how um, a lot of distribution companies are working these days, and they're obviously going to places like Exance as well and talking and trying the brand, doing that. But I wonder how much influence social media has more on distributors bringing making that perfume available in wherever they're being sold, and then their already established customers see there's a new brand and they get samples and try it out, and then that's how
Yeah.
they
Or
sell.
or people are just like writing in and asking like, "Hey, do you carry this brand? Because I
Yeah.
want to sample it or I want to come in and smell it." And then eventually, whether they like the brand or not, they kind of look at the price point, look at what they offer, and then decide yes or no. Yeah.
I'm with Candy Camp. I don't know if I could spend like most of the day not having a fragrance on.
Yeah. Funny because one time somebody was asking about what perfume to wear for their job, and they worked in a kitchen. They had just gotten a job in a kitchen. And I remember someone who has a red seal, which is like a certification in cooking, responded and said, "You can't wear anything. Just don't even think about it because it's going to mess with like how you perceive the food that you're cooking, and you can't do that." So I don't know if you just like spray water on yourself before you go in, or like, what's crazy? So I posted about this. I just bought this,
Yeah,
which is like a baby perfume, and it's water based and it's very light and very, very innocuous, I would say. But people are like going crazy over it. Like everybody got one. And I think, there is that thing of like, what can I wear that won't disturb anybody else and won't be perceived in an environment that is supposed to be right? So I
and who?
think you would maybe find a way.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah. I totally get.
probably.
I totally get the kitchen environment. Like if you're
Hmm.
food, and it can mess, and it has potential to mess with your what you're smelling and what you're tasting, because that
Yeah.
I'm assuming that a lot of when a lot of actual perfumers are working and mixing stuff and creating stuff, that they're not. I would be
They're not
surprised
wearing anything.
because surely that would mess up what they're smelling.
They all say that. Yeah, they all say that they don't wear it on a
Yeah.
regular basis. They maybe wear it on a special occasion. They have like a wardrobe, right? And I mean, Francesca Bianchi, she like shows her wardrobe now and then, and that's always I find that to be so interesting when perfumers show their wardrobe, right? But yeah, I think they don't wear anything day to day because it would mess up their
So Mika had to post this 3 times apparently. So I'm gonna put it up here. He gets a
Just wasn't going
participation.
through.
But they're not Creed anymore, are they? They sold to that. I can't remember what that company is called. So
Black
this new,
was it BlackRock or
yeah,
BlackRock used to own them or
yeah, and so this new Aventus Flanker is the first release under that new structure.
hmm.
Oh, look at that! We've already been doing this for an hour and 11 minutes, Hannah. Where did the time go?
So I mean we talked about pricing,
Yeah,
we talked about the state of the perfume industry,
yeah.
which is I mean, I think the best advice I can give to people is if you are spending where your money is being well used, maybe just sample, right? Sample as much as you can before you make it.
It is,
And
and it is
then,
a lot easier to sample these days, isn't it?
yeah, I guess so. You know what? And so this ties into the next one, new releases. What's coming up? Because
Yeah.
we talked about, you know what I want to sample is the Dries Van Noten line. Have you heard
Hmm.
about that one?
Yeah, but
I
that's been
haven't
out for a
seen,
while. Yeah.
yeah, I think a couple years, but I haven't come across any places to get samples. So I'm gonna look into that maybe.
I can't. I'm just trying to think if there's anything I've recently. Well, like I would be interested in smelling that Myrrh Mystère from
Mm-hmm.
Tom Ford because myrrh is a note that I really like, and I haven't found a lot of perfumes where I've really enjoyed that note in that composition. But also,
Mm-hmm.
Le Labo are doing one of their city exclusives. I think it's Shanghai, and that's their myrrh perfume as well. So maybe myrrh is
Yeah.
going to be the note du jour for 2023, or maybe 2023 is nearly over. Um, so,
And then like
I'd be very unlikely to buy those perfumes, but I am interested in smelling them as well.
yeah,
Um, but
but Le
yeah,
Labo is owned by Estee Lauder and so is Tom Ford. So I wonder if they just got a really good deal on some sort of myrrh accord. They were like, let's just like create this like myrrh
now I want to
perfume.
find out who the perfumer is for both of them.
Yeah, but it doesn't even matter. I feel like if they work in the same lab or have access to the same materials, they're probably just like, oh, I don't know. I don't
Mika, I am so with you on Cherry
know.
needs to go away.
Very, yeah. Yep. I think we're done with cherry. Hopefully that's it. There's no more cherry.
Yeah, let's lose the cherry.
But yeah, I guess myrrh is going to be the note for 2023,
As far as
2024.
I'm concerned, that's not a bad thing. So if anyone, if that's a trend, I'll get on top of. Uh, what's Andy?
Bergdorf.
When Xerjoff consolidated all their sub-brands into the Xerjoff name. Ah, well, how many sub-brands did they actually have? Like, I know that they had Suspiro, but otherwise, I just figured everything was Xerjoff. Uh, maybe you can clarify that. Yeah. Ah, okay. Uh, so, yes, new talent. Now creators have access to ingredients and factories. The barrier to entry is so low now. Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's a good thing. Anyone can get in touch with the
Hmm.
perfumer
Hey,
if people
Jonathan,
are
good to
available.
see you.
Yeah.
Ah, I didn't know Kemi were part of the Xerjoff family. Okay. It
And
was interesting. It was interesting, Hannah, at Exons, there were several stands where it was clear, so the way it was set up was like a lot of the smaller indie brands had their own little kind of booth and a table with their perfumes, and then there were bigger versions of that. And on some of those spaces, you would have, maybe one, two, sorry, two, three, four different brands, but you could tell it was clear that they were all from the same company or
Yeah. They were all
um,
linked
yeah,
together
yeah,
by a
yeah,
distributor or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. And
Yeah.
until I went there, I didn't. A lot of these I didn't realize. Like now I'm trying to think of ones that I saw. Like I'm pretty sure like BDK was one of some other
Mm,
brands that were owned by the same people as well. Yeah, Anna. Yeah, all the poor indie brands were way in the back, and that's another thing. With when we were talking about pricing for indie perfumers, like Exons is great to like get a bit of exposure, but even stuff like that, like you're if you're a small indie brand, you're disadvantaged as well, just purely because of how much it costs to be able to exhibit there.
yeah.
Um, and then, what most of them could only afford a smaller booth, and they're in the least prime position in the whole thing. So obviously, you're paying for real estate there, where
Yeah.
you get the most exposure, and yeah, so that's just another aspect like of marketing yourself as a small indie brand that you have to deal with. Like that you just don't, just because you don't have that budgeting market. A lot of indie brands can't, literally can't afford to send dozens of bottles out to influencers. Like and
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, and when yeah, so at the space, the building where they had it, you walk in and like I'm pretty sure the first big ones you see were Musk Milano and Nishan. Actually, Nishane didn't have a stand, but Musk Milano had a huge like sort of um, exhibition right at the front. Tiziana Terenzi. So they
Are
they
they
had.
owned by the same company? Like all of them? Like
I'm pretty sure Musk
Mascalano
Milano.
and
Maybe Anna will clarify. Is Musk Milano
yeah.
definitely Musk Milano and Fra, Fragrance di Milano? That's the other brand that they have. They might
Oh, okay.
have another one, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I'm not sure what Tiziana Terenzi has. So maybe Andy can shed some light. Yeah, like it. Yeah, if you ever get to go, like it's good that it's almost good that some of the people that you're more
Yeah.
likely to know are in sort of quieter places of
Yeah.
the
You just head to
building.
the back and
Yeah.
avoid. I mean, and it's probably like so busy and at the
Oh,
front anyways,
yeah.
right? So if you want to
It's
avoid the
crazy.
crowds, maybe go to those brands in the back.
Yeah. I
Interesting.
definitely recommend anyone do it at least once. But yeah. Um,
Yeah. I don't know. That's really interesting to know. I think it's just because the market has expanded so much, like the perfume market in general, right? It just means that there is so much more to weed out. And that just wasn't true 10, 15, 20 years ago, where, even like a brand like Joe Malone, I feel like gets a lot of hate because everything is very light, it's gonna last a long time. Now they're owned by Estee Lauder anyways. But if you think of like the origin story of this woman who's like creating her own perfume in her kitchen and selling it to her friends, and then to be to move up from that to selling at a department store at a counter, like that is pretty significant. And I don't know if like a small independent perfumer could have the same trajectory today. Today for someone that's
there's too
making
much
their own perfume,
competition.
yeah, wait, there's way too much competition. And how do you even get the counter space and yeah, and be recognized for the quality of your work? I think it would be so difficult. But she did that back then, even before she sold to Estee Lauder, and she was at the different stores and people were buying her stuff. So yeah, definitely it seems like, I mean, you could say that about almost anything, right? It was easier back then and now it's just so much more difficult. But
Yeah.
there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. Maybe social media. Social media is like where people can um, differentiate themselves and stand out. So you got to know how to play that game. Maybe decide what's good for you.
Exactly. Thank you, Catch My Whiff, for the 4.99 super chat. I'm not used to getting super chats, but I am now 100th of the way to getting a bottle of that Tom Ford.
There you go. You
Yeah.
can afford maybe 1 ml.
Um,
I think we should maybe like get like the myrrh from Tom Ford and then the myrrh from Le Labo and like have a little like we should just see what other Estee Lauder brands come out with like that myrrh perfume and just
yeah,
sample them side by side and
yeah.
everybody should like we should set it up so that everybody can do that with us and then we can all like smell it together.
Did you say Frederic Malle was Estee Lauder or are they L'Oreal?
Yeah, no, they are Estee Lauder, yes. And
I
they're
can't.
coming out with Heaven Can what's it called? Is it Heaven
Heaven
Can
can
Wait?
wait. Yeah, that's Jean-Claude Elena. But I'm just wondering that they don't. I can't think of anything where it's like that they have that's a myrrh perfume. Um,
Hmm.
Interesting. All right, we'll keep our eye out. But if we get samples of the Le Labos from and of Tom Ford from somewhere,
Yeah,
let's do a
try to
comparison.
do that. Yeah.
Um, Perfume directors, people get excited about products for a variety of reasons. In our little community, it's more about smell, but this is a tiny fraction. Yeah, it's true. It's true. We need to forget. We need to remember that. Like we're just such a small fraction of the people that buy perfumes.
Yes. I like
Yeah,
murder.
I can't imagine anyone in the bear wearing perfume. Am I right, Henna?
Oh, oh yeah.
I can't.
Deal
I'm
breaker.
yeah, and just
Maybe
as
the
an aside,
mom.
what's
Maybe the
that?
mom. I feel like the mother wears
Oh,
less.
she
I feel like
definitely had perfume. Like
probably has it in her kitchen too.
now I'm
Probably
just
like
trying
above the oven.
now I'm just trying to think of what she would have worn. It would have been something really suffocating,
Like Diva
like
by Ungaro.
her personality.
Yeah.
Um, and I was about to say, if anyone wanting a show to binge, I can't recommend The Bear highly enough, and Hannah
Yeah.
backs me up.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't tried. I know you know the Hermescence Mer. Is it Mer? Oh, I'm going to get the name wrong. Mer Elegant or Eglant or something like that. Have you tried that?
Okay. I have not.
It's been around for a while, but I need to try that as well. I just don't
See.
have
Yeah, you're right. It's Myrrh Eglantine.
Eglantine. That's the one. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I haven't smelled that one. Probably one of the better Myrrh perfumes out there.
yeah. And Aaron,
Okay.
yes, that is literally the only one I own, where it's that like I can smell that myrrh there. I used to have the Eau Sauvage Parfum, the old version that had myrrh in as well. Um, and there you go. V likes the packaging of the Dries Van Noten.
Yeah. Tell me why you
Oh,
didn't like them. Like, I need to know more. Were they just generic? Was it the base? I mean, um, I believe you if you say, because I know V and I have some similar tastes, expectations maybe for fragrance brands. So,
and if you ever get to try it, have you ever tried La Myrrh from Serge Lutens?
no. Is that in a bell jar now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, seen that though.
If
I
you ever,
try not to. I try not to sample things that are unobtainable because
fair enough.
when they're just out of reach, I just like I don't know if I want to be heartbroken. But yeah, maybe I will because you never know, right?
Um, some Booker Shake says Florist 1962 is a surprising recent release. Do you
Mhm.
think we will revert back to old style perfume or try to strike out towards modern and to me, bland perfume? Um, I don't see, I don't know, I don't see any trends or anything. I don't smell anything recently that tells me there's a trend towards old style perfumes. Like there's,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
well,
Like we're not getting like an old school Chypre or like a Fougere or anything like that anyways.
I think definitely people, some brands are trying to do their own take on old style genres, I guess. Like, like, yeah, I mean, there's always stuff that's going to be inspired by classic perfumes, but ultimately in the end it's always going to come down to sales. Like 1962 is a really good perfume, and I have it and I love it. But I'm assuming it didn't sell well for florists, and therefore it's discontinued. I just assume a lot of perfumes that get discontinued just don't sell.
Hmm. Not just because they're not good, but just because maybe the market's not ready for them or something happens where, they just don't sell.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you
Eric,
know what? Like look at Tom Ford Cafe Rose. So that's like a re-release. And when it launched, I've seen so many old reviews of it where people hated it and thought that it was nothing special because it's a rose patchouli. It doesn't really have a lot of coffee in it, despite being called Coffee Rose or Cafe Rose. And then now that being re-released and we now know Antoine Lee a little bit better, I feel like people are more into it now than they were back then when it was first released, just because, Antoine Lee is more popular and people are ready for it now, I guess. I don't know.
okay, yeah, there is that part of it as well. Maybe it was there's stuff that comes out that's ahead of its time. Um, and just on 1962 as well. To me, I mean, that reminds me a lot of Italian Cypress by Tom Ford, and that got discontinued as well. Yeah, J makes Eris, the kind of animalic stuff that I've
Yeah.
smelled from them is a little bit. I mean, but I think Barbara, who owns Eris, is like a real like
She likes vintage.
encyclopedia of vintage perfumes, and
Yeah.
she really loves that. Um, Now, Anna, this is the second time I've heard this perfume recommended to me, or at least asked if I tried. I haven't tried it because L'Occitane, even though they have a lot of stores in Australia, they don't have all their perfumes in those stores. Like I only see the perfumes I see in there are they have Eau de Beau, they have de l'Occitane, and I think they're the only ones that they have. They have a Verbena one as well, but I haven't tried Eau de Paris, so I'm curious.
Is it supposed to be good, Anna? Have you smelled it?
Um,
Someone really likes Antoine.
he's got fans. Antoine has this one here, Sexy Brain. Is that because of a particular perfume or just the style of
Or did
perfume?
you like read an interview with him or something like that? Like, did you hear him on a podcast or, uh, yeah, interesting.
Okay, so yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Nick, for pointing that out. But see, this is the thing. I haven't tried the Halston, so like for a lot of people smelling stuff, they have different references
Yeah.
on what perfumes remind them of. So I haven't smelled vintage polo green. I did smell Italian cypress, so I didn't smell the Halston. So it is interesting. Like, and like you could probably trace, you know, DNA lines back to like a few perfumes.
And I
Okay.
mean, that's the kind of neat thing is even if a brand comes out with something that is inspired by something from the past, you know, you're going to get to customers that maybe haven't smelled that original or whatever your inspiration was, right? So that's okay.
Okay. Well, Anna, you can't do this to me. Don't you always do this to me? You mention perfumes that are really good, and then you say, but they're discontinued. Stop it.
Yeah.
Anna sent me samples like ages and ages ago. There was one, and she'll remember this. She sent me a sample of this perfume that when I smelled it, I thought, oh, this is like really, I really liked it. And I asked her what it was. And it ended up being a brand that still exists. This one was the Correterno one, but this particular perfume doesn't exist anymore. And it's just so
Oh,
Um, which of the
yeah.
was
Which
it
one is?
the barbershop one?
I don't. I've smelled them all. I don't know which one I would characterize as being first shop.
We need to get Antoine Lee
Oh,
on here.
maybe
Uh,
Descendre.
okay.
I think Micah was talking about Descendre. Yeah.
There's
Cool.
a bit of thirst going on for Antoine Lee here, Hannah. He's a good-looking man. Uh, the next release maybe? Was he
Did
talking
you one time you talked about that um this perfume that was inspired by like recipes to ward off an evil eye and it was
Yes.
like and then did you ever try it?
Yeah, so it was from Nobile 1942, and it was called
Hmm.
um, hang on, anti-mal occhio. So
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
so
it was supposed to be like spicy or something, like have
yeah,
chili pepper
I'm gonna, I'll just bring it up on,
on
I don't
screen.
know how well you can see that. So that's
Yeah,
anti-mal occhio. So I got
cool.
to smell
Yeah.
this at the Nobile stand at Exons.
Huh.
I specifically went there so I could smell that.
Okay.
Um, what were the notes? So the notes were red chili pepper, basil,
Yeah.
almond, salt, star anise, immortelle, cypress, gaiac wood, sea notes, spun sugar, vetiver, oak moss, sandalwood, patchouli, and amber. When I smelled it, and I'll preface this by saying I smelled it on the strip. I put some on my skin, and it was just the once. But it was a little bit of a mess, to be honest. Like I think
Yeah.
there was just too much going
Okay.
on, and I just didn't like the way it dried down on my skin. So that ended up being a
Was
pass
a
for me.
fail. I mean,
But see, that's the
that's
thing.
what
You
it seemed
see,
like from the note period,
yeah,
right? Like that is just
yeah.
so many things going on.
Okay, Descendre is barbershop-ish. Okay,
Hmm.
all right, cool.
I like the idea of an anti-evil eye
Mm.
perfume. I like that idea, that concept.
But
It's a cool concept.
you just wear your most animalic, challenging perfume and keeps people away.
Which one?
What is the what do you actually what out of your
What
collection?
do
What is
I
the
have?
most animalic perfume you actually wear?
Probably camel. Camel's pretty
Oh
animalic,
yeah,
I think.
okay,
I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like yeah, and I wear camel quite a bit, but I don't think it I think when you smell it on paper, you think it's animalic, but when you put it on skin, it's not really the same. So,
I remember it the exact same thing. Like when you smell it on the strip, and you
hmm,
can smell like the civet is quite prominent in.
yeah.
But when I sprayed it on my skin, that lasts like for a minute, and then it
Hmm,
gets very sweet from the dried fruit accord that's in there
yeah. Yeah.
and the spices. So and it ends up drying down nicely.
I mean,
Just a
even
moment.
Zing, I have Zing, so that one is
Oh
pretty
yeah, yeah,
animalic.
yeah.
Uh, those are the two that I have that I do wear. I
So
also have,
you like
yeah,
animalic with a little bit of sweetness.
yeah, maybe.
Mm.
I have Acronite, and I can't wear that. I feel like it's too animalic.
Is that
What about you? That's
I yeah, good question. I guess I guess Absolute pour le soir, I think is pretty well, like that's kind of like just pissy honey smell. But now I'm just trying to think of one that I do have. I actually have a decant which I haven't talked about much of. Oh, I've actually got it right here. So this is you can't read that, but this is a Regidor War and Peace 2,
oh,
and I never wear it because sometimes I just do that, and wow, there's supposed to be real deer musk in this.
mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm gonna spray it on my hand. I mean, it's really good, and maybe because I'm used to it, like I think this just smells really very like it reminds me a bit of naturally would remind me of something like Musk Kubla Khan by Serge Lutin. Have you tried that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I could not be convinced to put that on skin. Quite honest.
Um,
I sprayed it on paper and I it literally made me gag. And then I just couldn't risk it.
yeah, see, this is really like I would wear it. I mean, but it is like it's winter here and it's
Yeah.
cold and like it's very cozy. This one's really cozy. The first time, see, it's interesting because the first time I smelled this, I thought, my God, like this smells like an animal shit on me. Um, but now
In
I'm
a good
smelling
way.
it and it's really cozy. So like maybe that says more about my personal hygiene than anything else.
I mean, you know, our tastes change too, right? Like our noses start to be accepting of those maybe more
Yeah,
daring.
absolutely. Um, uh, yeah, but Jay, working from home doesn't count. Okay. Um, story about the bear reminded me of a woman who said she found a bottle of Chanel No. 5 in her grandmother's. Ah, ah.
I heard that story, but good for her. That's yeah.
Um, yeah, I kind of am with you on this sentiment, but like it lost its way. I don't think it has much to do with Tom Ford himself, but more about the
Perfume
company
in
that
general
promotes
sometimes.
it. Like when you start seeing multiple releases every year, like that's the other thing. Too many regular releases from any brand, like, is
Hmm.
always kind of a bit of a red flag for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I think and maybe if they wanted to be more successful or more talked about. Like maybe if they just dial down the number of releases, they would get taken a little bit more seriously, right? And that's
Yeah,
happened to other brands too. Like I remember that happened, like when we talk about makeup, that happened to MAC, right? MAC Cosmetics. There used to be like spring collection, fall collection, summer collection. And then they were releasing collections once a month. Then it was twice a month. Then it was every week there was something new. And then people just stopped talking about them because it was
yeah.
too much. Nobody could keep up. So I think they just have to stop those work with
Like
it
I'm only teasing you, but
now.
I wear I don't wear like I wear my whole collection. Like I rotate through my collection, and if I'm wearing, it doesn't matter whether I'm at work or not. I'll wear whatever I choose to wear at
What
work
you want
because
to wear.
I never really get close enough to physically close enough to anyone to for them to get offended by how I'm smelling. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure they do, Cassie. One of maybe those hot. What are they? He's got sort of different levels of
Yeah.
prestige. Um, DB no smell. Oh,
Yeah.
you heard of
Okay.
this?
Yeah, this is the Drees and no.
Oh, right. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah.
didn't get the acronym. Um, Tom Ford smell
Yeah.
like deodorant. Maybe some of the newer ones do. I actually like more of the signature line, the cheaper Tom Ford stuff than the private blends.
Yeah. Yeah, it happened to Dior with the privés. I think people have said that there's too many Dior privés. There's no way
Yeah,
that they can all be good. So
yeah. There's more Dior Privés than there is. Well, I mean, I'm not thinking about all the women's Dior, but they do have a lot of Privés. Like
yeah, they
feels
do.
like they have a lot more than Chanel have like less exclusives.
Yes, I think so.
Ah, Casablanca is gorgeous. That's I don't find that too like challenging to wear for some reason, but it is a huge perfume. Like it really, that's one that really projects and lasts a long time.
Maybe it's
Uh,
a good time to plug your next live. Like, do you want to tell us what's
yeah,
gonna?
yeah. So
And it, Diane St. Clair's gonna be there.
I'm going to have Diane St. Clair from St. Clair, who's the creator of that Casablanca perfume. I'm going to have Pierre Long, who is about to release a line of perfumes from Bougie Bougie, and she's
Right.
also responsible for Gilded, which is my favorite perfume so far this year, which I got to smell at Exons. I've got Marie on from Miss Gao and James Elliott from Filigree and Shadow. So um, they're basically going to have an open forum to talk about their experiences being indie perfumers. So they're
Hmm.
going to be able to answer much more accurately some of the questions that we've tried to answer today. And they're all like it's a good contrast. You know, got Pia, who's based in the UK, and she's done perfumes for other brands as well. She's done a zoologist perfume. She did Chipmunk for zoologist,
That
and
one
now
won an award too.
yeah, now she's doing
Yeah.
her stuff. Marie, who's done it from scratch and self-taught, and Diane is from a similar place. She's been around a bit longer, and they both based in such different parts of the world and different environments, and James as well, who's based in Seattle, I think. And I love that they're all indie perfumers, but they're all so different in where they're at and where they're coming from. But they all get along really well, so it should be fun. I'm just going to let them talk and just watch the comments.
Fields the question.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. I
Um,
mean, so it'll be interesting to have their take on pricing. Pricing, like what when they look at the market and pricing their own goods compared to what is being offered at a department store, that's got to be a difficult thing to do. You want to make it accessible, but you also have to be able to make some money off of it. And that then you're competing with, $300 at Chanel versus $300 for your piece that maybe people
Yeah,
have never
yeah,
heard of.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And that, and I love that they've all got very strong opinions, and they're not afraid
Hmm.
to talk about it as well. So it'll be really interesting. Oh, sorry, Sambuca Shake. If I were the next in line of famous fragrance, yeah, to get to create some sort of signature perfume with an established creator, what would I aim for? That in terms of what it would smell like, I honestly don't know. It literally would depend on the day, like that I had to. I just go through too many phases to know that I want this particular smell. Like I
But
don't have.
would you go for something mass appealing or would you go for something challenging? Let's just say today, forget about every other day, but right now when the question's being asked.
Um, I would actually go for something that a lot of people could wear.
Okay. And then would you get something fruity, floral?
Not fruity.
Fruity or
Like,
floral?
let's eliminate fruity, right? Like if you want to do
Okay. No fruit.
this or that, floral over fruity.
Okay. Animalic or no animalic?
Slightly animalic.
Slightly animalic, but still mass appealing.
Yeah, yeah. But maybe
Okay.
I'm thinking maybe some kind of like Maurice Roussel musk kind
Okay.
of.
Okay. Okay. And then if you're going for a dry down, what kind of dry down are you? Do you have woodsy? Do you have ambery? What are you going
Um, I want it to be mossy,
for? Mossy. Okay. So,
spicy,
okay.
spicy and mossy.
Okay. Uh, okay. Interesting.
And
So there you go. So,
if I got to pick any perfumer, if I had the choice of perfumer, I would always go Sheldrake first.
mm-hmm.
And if he's watching,
Listening. He's got us on in the background while he's
yeah.
using his formulas.
Hey, he looks at my Instagram stories sometimes, Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's a fake account, maybe. Um,
Look at it.
all right. So
Okay, there you go.
Hannah and I are on a very strict 2 hour limit, possibly shorter than that. So, well, yeah, like if Galan wanted to make me something, I'd definitely do it. But if you guys have got any last minute questions that you would like answered, or you just want to tell us how lovely we are, I'm sure I'll put up that comment. I'll highlight it. But everyone, I've left. I hope you can see. Is the link to your channel up on top of the chats from your screen, Henna?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Everyone, go and follow Henna's channel. I've learned so much about makeup and skincare.
Thanks everybody for the comments and the questions.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone, for
good
sticking
chat.
around and watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, then maybe this is a good time to say goodbye. Henna, thank
Bye.
you. It was
Thank
lovely
you.
to see you. And we'll do this again soon. Okay.
See you next time.
Maybe we can
Bye
do it.
everybody.
Maybe we'll do it on your channel. Okay. See you guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.